Ever wish you had someone to tell you the truth about what it takes to run a successful business and live a fulfilling life? Well, amiguita, you've come to the right place. So grab your favorite cafecito or cocktail, your courage, and let's get to work. I'm Jenna Sabores, a therapist, business strategist, mindset coach for entrepreneurs, and a feisty Latina from Miami. And I'm determined to teach you the exact tools you need to stop settling and start kicking some serious derriere. What do you say? Are you in? Then let's get started. Welcome to Latinas Empowering Latinas podcast. Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited to share with you today a dear friend that I actually met many decades ago, and I won't age myself more than that. Her name is Claudia Petrilli. She's a functional health coach, integrative nutrition coach, health educator, and creator of the Hormone Rescue, and I will have her explain exactly what it is she does and how she can help us do what we do without burning out. So welcome so much, Claudia.
Thank you so much.
Tell everybody what it is exactly that you do.
Yeah. So I'm a functional health coach and integrative nutrition coach. I work with women essentially over 35. So we can say that's midlife almost, or getting into midlife. I know it's crazy, who really just want to learn how to support their hormones from a natural approach or natural perspective so that they can improve, their monthly cycle, their energy, their mood and weight and so on. A lot of women come to me at this time in their mid 30s, early 40s, mid 40s who are just like, I feel horrible. How can I not feel horrible? And typically it's definitely due to hormones and all that, but we can dive into it.
Absolutely. I'll give you some backstory. So I actually went to school with Daniela, Claudia's sister, and I met Claudia through Daniela. Literally since I was 17, I've known these beautiful women, and life has passed on and we ended up reconnecting, and I actually ended up working with Claudia because I was her ideal client at that point. Named myself that. But I hit all the check marks, at least for the people that she was helping. I wanted to bring her on for her to share with us what burnout and stress does to us, not only as individuals and as women, but as entrepreneurs, especially therapists. Claudia, tell me a little bit about your journey and how you ended up kind of switching, because I know your story, but share with everybody else how you ended up doing what you do.
Well, I guess it's like, where do I even begin? I mean, I would say that I burned out before I even turned 30. I was definitely a workaholic, liked to work, but also don't know when to stop. I feel like that's one of the things with entrepreneurs. Like, we're so ambitious and we want to do so much, but it's such a fine line where we can burn out even if we're doing things that we enjoy. And, I used to work in New York City. I was commuting like 3 hours a day. I would get to my office exhausted already just from that commute, sit down and, have a full work day ahead. So I would, drink all the coffee, I would have carbs, whatever I could grab to give myself that energy boost that I needed. And, it started to take a toll on me. And at one point, it's just funny how there's like these divine interventions, I guess you can call them, where I was driving home after I was on the train, driving home, from the train station, and I got into a car accident. And, it wasn't my fault. Like, somebody actually hit, it was like a hit and run, and I got hurt. And it was just like one of those moments of clarity where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? Every day I'm doing this horrible commute. I'm working at a job that I don't even really like. Yeah, I was making good money, but it's like, okay, are you like it's almost like you're selling your soul. Where you're doing things to get ahead and to make the money and all that. And meanwhile, I was slowly like killing myself, so to speak. Like, I just was so burned out. And then shortly thereafter, my period went MIA.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's why a lot of women come to me, because their cycles are crazy, and we'll talk about that and how stress plays a role. But that was one thing for me that was just like, what's going on here? My body isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then, long story short, I ended up being diagnosed with a pituitary adenoma, which is a small benign tumor on my pituitary gland. That little pituitary gland plays a massive role in our overall health, especially our hormone health. And what I learned was that stress increases prolactin, and this particular tumor is overproducing prolactin. I was like, okay. Didn't know about that. So, and it's crazy because these things are actually quite common, and it can cause issues with your vision. It can cause headaches, loss of periods, weight gain, infertility. It was a wake-up call, and I had to really learn how to mitigate stress in my life. And that is no easy feat, especially as a business owner. Yeah.
Not at all. It was in the journey of kind of having your own unfortunate burnout and this catastrophic moment in your life where you were like, what's happening? What am I doing to myself? And then you obviously went on the path to healing and learning what was happening. How did you get to that place and pivot, starting to say, okay, I want to help others in the same space?
Well, and this is a story I often tell to clients and when I teach master classes and things, I had gone to a doctor with all these symptoms and she didn't seem to be concerned by them at all. And, I got dismissed like many women do.
Are you kidding? So she's like, no, you're fine. You're not getting your period, but you're fine.
Yeah, and I was depressed. I mean, it was bad. It was not a good it was one of the worst times of my life. I would not like to relive that ever. But she basically was like, "Well, it's normal to not get a period. Women skip periods all the time. You should actually enjoy it." And she goes, "Or, we can try another hormonal birth control pill if you want." And at the time I was on hormonal birth control and, that played a role in it as well. But I just remember thinking like, that doesn't seem right. Like, you get
Mhm.
a lot as women, I feel like we always get that gut like intuition and oftentimes we ignore it. I did not ignore it, which I'm very grateful for because I knew that something was wrong. And at that time, she hadn't diagnosed me, but then that led me to getting a second opinion, doing, more digging, functional testing and all that. And that's when I got the diagnosis. And I'm so glad that I was like, you know what? She's dismissing me. I need to advocate for myself. And that was that. And then, I just started learning about hormones and different ways to heal your body from a natural perspective. And I started thinking like, I can't be the only woman struggling with this. And of course I wasn't. So I started to research that and learn as much as I could about women's health in general. And then I started diving into women's hormone health. And I was just like, I want to help other women. It was just like one of those epiphanies, and I was working jobs that I didn't like. I had good jobs. I was a graphic designer working in marketing and publishing, but I just was feeling kind of, I don't know, just not, I wasn't doing what I was meant to be doing, right? I wasn't living my purpose. And it was just like, you get those nagging little like whispers. It's like, you need to be doing something else. And I decided to go back to school and start my own business. And here we are a decade later.
What a huge shift that was from like
Yeah.
graphic design, working in the city to now being out in the suburbs and helping other women with
Mhm.
like
Right.
aligning their inner soul, essentially.
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it.
I know a lot of therapists listen to this, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs in general. And my whole thing is you just mentioned that kind of entrepreneur drive where we're go-getters and we essentially are so driven that you kind of sometimes ask, is it drive or is it like anxiety or is it like, what is all this energy? Where is it coming from? And where is it displaced?
Mhm.
What do you see when you are working with women that are entrepreneurs that are very stressed and burned out? How does that affect you, your body? Because, the mental piece is one piece, but how does that physically and chemically alter hormones and mood?
Yeah. I mean, when you were just saying that, I was even thinking like, and I know you know this, there's a bit of a trauma response there. And for those of us who have dealt with trauma in the past, it's like we wonder like, why are we working so hard? Is there like a value piece there and self-worth? And I see that with clients. But from a physical perspective, when the body is stressed, first of all, the body doesn't know the difference, whether it's a physical stress or an emotional stress. And there are different types, right? But essentially, stress is going to stimulate your adrenal glands. So I talked about a pituitary gland. We had different glands in our endocrine system, and that is going to basically stimulate them to create stress hormones, namely cortisol, one of the biggest ones, right? Most people have heard of cortisol as a stress hormone, but it's not bad. We need cortisol. We actually need it for survival. What happens in these stressed states, if you will, cortisol is going to trigger your sympathetic nervous system. And we don't want to remain in a sympathetic nervous system. We want to be in a parasympathetic state because that is what relaxes your body. The problem is that we live in this high stress, fast paced world. And especially as entrepreneurs, where we're trying to do all the things, we're wearing all the hats, and we end up in this chronic state of stress. While we need cortisol, like I said, for survival and for energy output, we don't want it to be elevated chronically
Mhm.
because it slows down everything. It can slow down your thyroid function, which is a big one that I see in my functional health coaching practice. And then what happens when your thyroid's not functioning properly or optimally? It's going to slow down your energy, your metabolism, your mood. A lot of women experience hair loss. Their libido totally goes MIA. And then, of course, hormone production. So when the body is under stress and it's going to prioritize survival. So that's why your cortisol rises, and it's not going to want to do anything else. It's going to be like, "Oh, you want me to ovulate this month? Nah, I'm trying to keep you alive. You want to lose weight? Nah, I'm trying to keep you alive." Essentially, any of those non-essential functions in the body are going to be slowed down because the body is just trying to keep you alive. And then what I see with that, with a lot of women and why they end up on my doorstep is they're not ovulating, they're not getting their periods are irregular, they're not making enough progesterone, which is our calming hormone. We want that hormone to stay around as long as possible. So we have, really bad PMS, headaches, just all those symptoms. And then from a digestive perspective, this is huge. A lot of people don't realize the connection between stress and our gut health. And again, with cortisol can disrupt the gut lining. If you are stressed out, you're not going to be able to optimize digestion. Things just get slowed down, right? A lot of women experience constipation, malabsorption. So they're not able to absorb nutrients, vitamins, minerals, whatever, from their foods properly. So then we're in a nutritionally deficient state. And then what happens when we don't have all the B vitamins we need, the minerals, the vitamins, we literally feel like crap. Like we are burned out. We are depleted of nutrients. So it has quite a cascade of effects.
So far, the words that I've caught, because I've heard the technical language and then I hear like the lay language that I'm catching up with. And you've said a lot of things that probably a lot of people haven't heard before, and some hormones, that are attached that people maybe haven't heard before. But I'm hearing hair loss of libido, inability to lose weight, possibly gain weight, the stressors. So all of the symptomology people come with is actually a result of all the stress. Talk to me about ongoing stress, like the idea of chronic stress or adrenal fatigue. Like at what cost are these entrepreneurs paying?
Yeah. So the term adrenal fatigue, like obviously there's a more nerdy way of saying it but what it essentially is like a hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis issue. Essentially your brain, when you're stressed out, your brain is like slowing the body down. That's really what it is. And they're not communicating properly. Your body is not communicating properly. And what I see, at least with entrepreneurs, is, they're burned out. And, if we keep going, eventually what could actually happen is the body doesn't want to make these stress hormones anymore. So you have a very hard time kind of coming back from it and repairing that. And what I even see is things like anxiety and depression, disconnection from themselves. You kind of lose yourself.
What do you mean by that when you say disconnection from yourself?
I think not really knowing who you are, what your purpose is. You're in this state of like go, 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 go mentality. When we don't rest, when we don't slow down and be present, we kind of forget why we're here. Like, what is our purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've definitely done that myself, where as an entrepreneur, and I have to constantly check myself, where I get so excited to do things, I'm so ambitious, but then it's like, you're just going. And then you're like, wait, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Do I even want to be doing this? Do I want to say yes to that project? Why am I saying yes to this stuff? So yeah, it's so much more than just your physical. It affects you mentally and the work that you're actually doing in the world, I think.
Absolutely. I want to hit home specifically for women that are also therapists. So I'm going to go a little deeper there. In our space, we're always taught, we're teaching our people how to create boundaries and take care of themselves and rest and sleep. And ideally, and I know that a lot of the people on the stage that I work with are either trying to start or scale their businesses, but both are very heavy spaces, because when you're starting, you're probably doing your hours and your clinical hours, and you're working a full-time job and maybe started a part-time. And you're working like you're at your max capacity of what you can do, and there aren't enough hours in the day times 10. Mm-hmm. What can you advise women in this position where they feel like they don't have enough time and they feel like they have no choice?
Yeah, it's hard. And just thinking of that, like I remember starting this business and how hard it was. But like you said, then you get to a point where you want to scale, or you need to scale, and you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, it goes from one. I always say there's different iterations, whether you're in the beginning or you're growing or you're doing great. There's always some kind of stress. There's always some type of imposter syndrome when it comes to whatever point or chapter you are in your business, because every time you grow, you pivot. You have to.
Yeah.
because everything else is not sustainable.
No, yeah, the imposter syndrome is very real. But I mean, one thing I say, even to my clients who are not in business or, entrepreneurs, I
Mhm.
say, stop looking at what others are doing.
Stop comparing.
That is a surefire way to be unhappy
Oh,
and burn out.
and Claudia, we know better than anybody else. Like in our world, we are so attached to social media because we have a business,
Mhm.
because we're trying to connect and expand our reach. How do you advise people? Like, what do you do to ignore, to tune out? How can they make small little steps to start making a difference to at least slow down the process of getting to that burnout so quickly?
I mean, well, from a social media perspective, I am a firm believer in not following a ton of people, kind of keeping blinders on. I know that's really difficult because, of course, you want to engage with others, you want to learn, you want to see what people are doing. But me personally, that has never served me well when I'm constantly looking outward.
Mm-hmm.
I want to look inward because we're all different. And what works for one person isn't going to work for somebody else when it comes to health, business, anything.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, I don't follow a lot of people. I kind of mute some pages. I just do what I have to do. Like I focus on my own business, stay in my own lane. But then in terms of, what could we do on a day-to-day basis? Like finding those pockets of time. And I know it sometimes feels like it's impossible to find time for yourself, especially entrepreneurs who have children. I don't have kids. I have a dog who, he's definitely demanding and he just puked before I got on this call. I was like, great. Thanks, buddy. Perfect timing. But you have to. I really believe that you absolutely, it's non-negotiable to find time for yourself. Even if it's 5 minutes in the morning, sitting down in silence without your phone, having a cup of tea or matcha or whatever you enjoy, and just being present. I think that in our society, because it's so fast paced, and just as entrepreneurs, we are glued to our phones. We're always
Mm-hmm.
looking, we're always scrolling. And I myself have a hard time sometimes just sitting still and being okay with that. But what's so great about that stillness is like, those are when ideas come to you,
Mm-hmm.
at least for me.
Absolutely.
I'm like, ooh,
Absolutely. Yep. Those
you
moments.
know,
And I guess so. So let's kind of like not trick, but let's give people a different perception, right? When you slow down, you actually gain some clarity and then you can get even more creative on what you're trying to assess.
yes.
It's almost like being fresh. Like, when I take a nap and I wake up, I'm like a new person. Like, it's
Mhm.
almost like mentally taking a nap
Yeah.
while you're still awake.
Yes.
And I love that you're making it so doable. And I love, if you follow Claudia, and we'll share her Instagram information as well. Like, I love that you always post like, I'm going for a quick walk, or I'm out here with some sun. There's some sun today, like vitamin D. Like, you just make it, like you build it into your day.
Yeah.
I love that you try to make it as easy as possible, in addition to knowing that there's a lot of more complex components to feeling better.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, I've always wanted to ask you this.
Hmm.
Talk to me about red light, because I've seen you do it, and you and your dog and your boyfriend like map out to it. I've done it once with like a facial and I
Yeah.
fell asleep. Talk to me about red light therapy. What is it? How does it work? Does that help?
Yeah, and people always ask me about it. It's funny because I'm definitely a skeptic when it comes to a lot of these like gadgets, health and wellness gadgets. And there's a lot of stuff out there that is whatever.
Too many.
It's too much. It can be incredibly overwhelming. I don't think we need all the things. I always like to stick to the basics with clients. But for me, I invested in that because I'm on the East Coast. So, I mean, what that's like living up here. You used to live up here in New Jersey,
Gosh,
this area.
that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, we have some dark, dreary winters, and that affects my mood for sure. And again, as a business owner and somebody who has to show up for my clients, I need to support my body as much as I can and support my mood and feel good day to day. And when there's no sun out, I got to find some other source of it. So that's why I got the red light. But it's not just about the light. I mean, light therapy does have quite a bit of science to back it up. So, that's something that anytime there's a little bit of science, I like to geek out on it. But I also know what it makes me feel like, and it just feels good. It feels good to sit in front of that light. I have struggled in the past with some chronic pain, likely from stress and overworking myself. And that definitely helps. It's just something that I work into my self-care, I would say.
I love that. Yes. Those winters were really rough. Like, we can have a
Mm-hmm.
whole conversation on seasonal affective disorder
Yep.
in the winter anywhere. Oh my God. I remember it getting like so dark. It's 4 o'clock. I'm in math class in Caldwell and I'm looking outside. I'm like, how is it pitch black outside right now? It's 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Another question about the stress. If somebody already has a predisposition to anxiety or depression, how does the stress of being an entrepreneur, just general stress, compounds with something that's already kind of in your system and built into you to begin with?
I mean, it's everything that we talked about. Physically, it's going to manifest. I would say, gosh, probably 90% of the clients I work with have some level of anxiety. And
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of it can be stemmed from childhood, trauma, things like that. A lot of it is, I mean, personality type, right? Like a lot of us we just tend to be more on the stress side or tend to get more overwhelmed or maybe a little controlling in certain ways. I know I am.
Mhm. Yep, over here too.
It's hard. It's hard to unlearn these behaviors. But what I always say is it's the same thing. Like it's not like listen, we're all different, but in the same breath, we all need the same things in life. We need
Yes.
rest, we need connection, we need joy, we need to slow down, we need to find purpose in life. And if you don't have those things, I just don't see how you can actually heal, how you can minimize your anxiety and depression. I always say to my clients, like, if you're feeling really stressed or anxious, like, what can you take off your plate?
Mhm.
What can you say no to? And that's where you mentioned boundaries earlier. And, people don't like to set boundaries because they feel like it's being mean or that people aren't going to like them or whatever. And there is a way of setting boundaries that can be very loving and actually benefits the other person as well. What I have learned is when you're somebody who is constantly trying to help and fix others, you're also enabling them and they're not able to do what they need to do in this life. I know that
Absolutely.
kind of went off on a tangent there from what you asked, but
No, I think that's completely relevant, especially the population we're talking to right now. Absolutely.
mhm,
We give and we give and we give, and then the boundaries get blurred, and then we end up enabling, and then we don't know how to reestablish the boundaries we need to take care of us.
mhm,
And that's huge.
yeah,
That's incredibly huge.
yeah.
Claudia, tell us a little bit about your program, how it works, and kind of what you do with the people that you help.
Yeah, so my program is the Hormone Rescue. And again, it's for women typically over 35 who are starting their perimenopausal journey, which a lot of women don't even realize that that's what's happening. Because after 35, our hormones start to decline. And again, with the level of stress that so many of us are under, I'm seeing it earlier and earlier where women's hormones are declining. They have adrenal issues, essentially burnout. So I help them repair their bodies, so to speak, and we look at their gut, we look at minerals. So, I'm trying to help them essentially replace what's lost.
Mhm.
And typically from the effects of stress, whether it's emotional stress or physical stress that they don't even realize oftentimes that they're under.
Yeah, I love that so much. Claudia, I know where to find you. Can you tell everybody else where they can find you and connect with you and learn more from you about what you do and how you can help?
Yeah, so I'm health coach Claudia on Instagram. That's pretty much where I hang out, I would say the majority of my days. And then claudiapetrilli.com is my website where you can find all information about my program, The Hormone Rescue.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It is so nice to talk to you always and extra nice to be able to share you with the world.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited you tuned in. The best way to find out the second a new episode is released and receive all the valuable tools and actionable steps I share is to subscribe to the podcast, so make sure you do that. Sending you so much love until next time. Bye.